I have this short on Bitcoin. These are the Bitcoin futures. And basically my plan here is I'm just shorting with the plan of getting a scalp. So the Bitcoin futures are priced right now about 1,000 higher than the actual Bitcoin itself. So you see it get up to 100,000, but the actual Bitcoin around this price is only actually at 99,000. So I put my stop about 101,000, a little bit above that, and that's where the actual 100K Bitcoin would be. So I'm basically putting my stop above 100K Bitcoin. I'm shorting here because this has been probably an exhaustive rally up. This buying got a bit extreme through here. My premise is that the odds are greater that scalpers that are shorting below 100,000 will continue to make money. So if I scrunch up my chart here, we can see how many times Bitcoin has come up nearly 200,000 only to sell off. Right? Each of these strong spikes up, they're being sold. So my idea here is that basically if I put a stop above 100,000, the odds are that I would probably win several scalps before I would lose, before it actually goes above 100. So, the odds might be 70% that, or 80% that I'll be able to get a scalp profit before it actually hits my stop. So we'll pause this and see how this plays out. If it goes down, that's good because I get my scalp. If it goes up and stops us out, well, that's pretty cool too, because that means Bitcoin got above 100,000. So we will. So either way, I feel like I'm a winner here. Bitcoin will eventually get above 100,000. That 100,000 has acted as a ceiling. Once it gets above there, right, that's going to act as a floor instead of a ceiling. And then what is the ceiling after that? Well, there's no price target above. I mean, we have no previous price for there to be a resistance level. So what we might have, I'll pull up the daily chart. Right, so as this market is going up here, what kind of targets were we looking for? Well, one is a measured move from the bottom of this range to the top of it. Let me squeeze the chart more here. So we have this previous range over here. So measured move from the bottom to the top puts us about 7,000 above where we are now. So as Bitcoin is going higher, when you are at the all-time highs, you kind of have to get more creative and try to find targets and resistance levels above. Right, might want to look for some sort of like leg 1, leg 2 move here. Maybe leg 1, leg 2. Put it around 125. Then above that, I mean, you kind of run out of targets based on previous like price levels. Something to think about would be big round numbers. So like 100,000 is a big round number. That's really the only reason this market's been, first of all, rallying up so aggressively to 100,000, and then also stalling. I guess the big idea would be it's stalling at this 100,000. It's not quite getting there. So like 125, 150, 200,000, those are all big round numbers as well. So when you don't have previous price levels to act as resistance or targets, you have to go off of something like these big round numbers, and so we have lots of those above. Bitcoin really could have lots of room to run over the next few weeks, few months, and I'm sure most people hold a long-term case for Bitcoin to be bullish. I drew in this blue line here. This is the previous all-time high, and I wanted to talk about long-term why there might be a bullish case for something like Bitcoin. So this is called populationpyramid.net. I always find this site interesting. It basically projects the population of each country out to 2100, and it also shows historically what the population was back to 1950. So I always like to kind of play around with this and just look at what countries are growing and shrinking, where they've been or where they're going. So to me, what might be a bullish case for Bitcoin is that so many countries that are just now really waking up to some of the more modern advancements. So think about Africa, right? They're developing, and they're just like the rest of the world. I mean, they are waking up to technologies like Bitcoin. For them, let's pull up the population. So this is the Congo, and population is 110 million. By 2100, population will be 430 million, just in this one country in Africa. As these people are being born, what is the currency that they're going to be? What is the accepted currency of the world that they're going to be being born into? Well, this could be speculative, but I mean, Bitcoin is becoming more and more accepted and used. So as they're being born into this world, they will naturally be accepting of Bitcoin. They will, it's possible that their salaries would be paid in Bitcoin. Think about the challenges that so many countries like in Africa face politically, how much corruption there is. How many of these countries, how many of the people would prefer that local currency that might just get devalued, overnight, or might be stolen by a corrupt politician? How many of them would rather have that over something that is internationally accepted and secure and can be taken anywhere, right? Something like Bitcoin. Other examples, think about like Kenya. Kenya will double over the next 80 years. Pakistan, not quite going to double, but will actually, yeah. So here's Pakistan currently, 250 million. By 2100, they'll be over 500 million. So as these people are being born, they're going into a world that is already accepting of Bitcoin. Pakistan, similar to Africa in the way that, right, we want to be optimistic and say that corruption will improve over time. However, likely that's not going to be the case in all places. And I think in general it will get better. But for many people, for potentially hundreds of millions or billions of people in the world, they're going to be born into situations where their politicians still are corrupt, where the government is still shaky, and they'll be preferring something like Bitcoin over their local currency. Maybe they won't, I was talking about some might be paid in a salary of Bitcoin. Maybe it's not entirely Bitcoin. Maybe they're still paid in their local currency, but people would treat it as a store of value. And, many of the people that I'm talking about specifically in this video, many of them will I mean, just they'll be quite poor. They're being born into poor countries. Many of them are likely to stay that way, unfortunately. But there will still be millionaires and billionaires that will come out of these countries. There will still be people that change the world from these countries. There'll still be wealthy families. What will they want to choose? The people that really are able to be mobile and choose where they want to be, are they going to stick with their local currency? Or are they going to at least put part of it in something like Bitcoin? And I would say there's going to be many millionaires and many billionaires that are going to be born and come out of these countries that will be preferring Bitcoin over whatever that local currency is. Here's another example. Here's Uganda. Currently, they have about 50 million people, and by 2100, they'll be around 120 million. So there are many, countries in Africa, and Pakistan is another example, where the populations are going to explode, and these huge populations, they're going to grow up and be accepting of Bitcoin. In India, it's really already the biggest country in the world, but it still has about 3 decades of growth. So how many hundreds of millions of people will be born into India that will be accepting of Bitcoin, and what percentage of them will become rich and will prefer Bitcoin over, even something as even the rupee? I'd say many of them will prefer something as secure as Bitcoin over the rupee. Indonesia, similar situation. Large population already. They still have several decades of growth. United States, we still have some growth left. It's more modest growth, but it'll be around over 400 million by end of the century. How many millionaires and billionaires will we create? Once again, they're going to be growing up into this world. Bitcoin is already going to be accepted by the time by the time 2030, 2040 comes around. And there's going to be this natural buying that's going to occur just from people being born and growing up and choosing this over their own currency. Right? And compare Bitcoin to something like gold. I mean, gold is a store of value, but you really can't move it, right? Something like if someone is wanting to flee a country, let's say one of these giant countries we just discussed, it could even be the United States, or say India, or the Congo. If one of these countries has a massive disaster, massive corruption and civil war, and you have hundreds of millions of people wanting to get out of one of these countries, they can't take that gold with them, but they can take the keys to their Bitcoin. And that's a huge difference between gold and Bitcoin. And that's why a lot of people think Bitcoin has a huge advantage over gold. So this was kind of a sidebar. I just love talking about demographics and thinking about like population growth and these things. It's always interested me. So if anyone is interested in talking about that, let me know. I just enjoy the conversation. Back to Bitcoin. Our trade is still about break even here, so I'm going to pause it and wait for more action to happen. So different ways to look at this. Could look at it as a double top, either with this high and then with this tail come up here. You could see a double top here, or you could see a double top with this high and then this high. And they're not perfect. Right, obviously, I mean, these highs are not at the same level, but effectively it's the same thing. The bulls are trying to push it up past this level, and they failed here. They're trying to push it up again, and so far they're stalling. So effectively, this is a double top. Now, if someone was buying through here, a lot of them might start getting out below a bear bar like this. So this would be a second entry short. Market's moving up, pulls back. So first entry short, it's here, heads up more, and then creates a bear bar with the, so this would be a second entry short. It's a second entry short after a double top, far from the moving average. I don't know how many bears would short below it, but I think a lot of bulls would go ahead and get out below that. So that might push the market lower if the market can get below this bear bar. So we got an inside bar here that was another bearish bar. So this ended up becoming the second entry short, first entry and second entry. So we can see the size of this bar here. I would say a lot of this is bulls that we're buying through here are just, they have their profits from wherever they bought, and now they're ready to just go ahead and get out below that second entry short. It's starting to form a head and shoulders top. All right, left shoulder, head, right shoulder. So good for the bears. Our issue is we're coming up against the moving average now. It's been over 20 bars since the market's touched the moving average. So normally there's buyers the first time the market comes back to the moving average. One idea to see how far back this pullback we're on will go is doing a 50% retracement. So take it from the low, the power move, to the high. That puts us back down here. And we'll have to see what happens. I mean, I think that's a reasonable spot, probably, where if bears are shorting here, they'll probably be getting out around that area. And then by that time, the 200 moving average might be closer up. So you're going to have two levels of support around this level. Decent follow through for the bears. 3 consecutive bear bars. No reason to be getting out of a short here.
Target filled.
All right, got filled there. So, that was just a scalp on Bitcoin. Basically, the premise was that we're not going to get to 100K yet, and that the odds of us being able to get a scalp were 60-70%, and my risk reward was about even. So the math worked out. We'll get above 100K, and then once it gets above 100K, a good chance it could be a strong run after that. But we'll have to see. Good luck trading, everybody. I'll see you next time.